Ooh, I feel very cold. I have a cough and a sore throat and a runny nose and a fever. I know what to do. My dad is a doctor. I can ask him for things I can do to feel better. Hi, Dad. I'm feeling really sick today. What can I do to feel better? Okay, you're right. I must drink lots of water. If I want to cure my sore throat, I must drink lots of water. What? I mustn't leave the house. Oh, you're right. If I leave the house, I can make other people sick. Stay in bed all day. It's a good idea. I should stay in bed all day, but I want to play some video games. Well, I shouldn't play video games all day. That's a bad idea. I know what to do. I might make your famous chicken noodle soup. If I have the time and I have the ingredients, I might make that soup. But I don't remember how to make it. Dad, could you please tell me how to make your famous chicken noodle soup? It would make me feel so much better. You're gonna text it to me? Great! Thank you, Dad. You're the best. It's so cool that my dad is a doctor, isn't it? But he's also still my dad, so I don't have to listen to everything he says. You might remember when I talked to my dad, we talked about some things that were necessary or not, some things that were a good idea or not a good idea, and some things that were possible or not possible. We use a special type of verb to describe these situations, and we call them modal verbs. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about how we use and how we form modal verbs. Because I'm a good student, I took notes about what Dr. Dad said. My dad said that there was one thing that was absolutely necessary if I wanted to feel better. He said, I must drink lots of water. In this sentence, must is a modal verb. Later, we'll talk a little bit more about when we use must. This sentence uses a formula. Subject plus modal verb plus main verb. I plus the modal verb must plus the main verb drink. Remember that the main verb is the most important verb of the sentence. Something that's really cool about modal verbs is that even when we change the subject, the main verb stays the same. In this sentence, the subject is my name, Grayson, so it's in the third person, but the main verb stays the same, and we don't have to add an S. Let's look at another example. My dad will text me the recipe. My dad is the subject, will is the modal verb, and text is the main verb. You might remember that will is used to talk about the future. Even though the subject is third person, the main verb is always the same. When we use a modal verb, the main verb never changes. Isn't that cool? Remember what my dad said? That I must drink lots of water. He also said, I mustn't see my friends. Must is an affirmative word. Mustn't is a negative word. Both of these verbs are verbs of obligation. When something is an obligation, that means we have to do it, or often there are negative consequences. For example, I must drink lots of water if I want to cure my sore throat. I mustn't see my friends. If I see my friends, they will get sick. Another example is a rule at school. If I want to speak to the teacher, I must raise my hand. I mustn't shout at the teacher. The form of this is must plus the main verb, or mustn't plus the main verb. Must drink, mustn't see. My dad also told me I should stay in bed all day. And he also said I shouldn't play video games all day. Should is an affirmative word. Shouldn't is a negative word. Both of these verbs are used to give advice. When we say, I should stay in bed all day, I'm saying that it's a good idea, but I don't have to do it if I don't want to. Saying that I shouldn't play video games all day, well, it's a bad idea to play video games all day, but I don't need to stop if I don't want to. Just like with must, we say should or shouldn't plus the main verb. So should, stay, and shouldn't, play. Now I wrote a couple other things about what my dad said, but I'm not very sure if I'm going to do them or not. I might make some soup. I might not study English. Might is an affirmative word, and might not is negative. We say that might and might not are used to express a possibility. Something is a possibility when you don't know if you're going to do something or not. I might make some soup. I don't know because maybe I don't have the time or the ingredients to make the soup. We say I might not study English. It depends on if I feel better or not. Just like with the other modal verbs, it's the verb plus the main verb. So might, make. Might not, study. Finally, we're going to talk about some questions that use these modal verbs. I asked my dad if he could give me his famous chicken soup recipe. I didn't just say, Dad, give me your famous chicken soup recipe. I was talking to an adult, so I had to ask him in a polite way. When we ask someone a question in order to get something that we want, and we do this in a polite way, we are making a request. We can make polite requests using the modal verbs could and would. For example, could you give me your famous chicken soup recipe? Would you be able to give me your famous chicken soup recipe? Could is a little bit easier to remember. It's always could plus the subject plus the main verb. Would you be able to is longer. When you make a polite request, you can choose to use either could you or would you be able to. Both of them are correct and mean pretty much the same thing. Now let's take a look at our first grammar exercise. We have to read the sentences and decide if they are a request, a possibility, advice, or an offer. Let's do the first one together. It says, could you help me with the project? I'm finding it very hard. Could you help me with the project is a polite way of asking a question. So it's a request. In exercise 8, you have to choose the correct modal verb for each gap. You also have to think about the context of each situation. Let's do the first one together. These bags are very heavy. You be able to help me carry them. And it's a request. The options are would, should, or must. We remember that you be able to is a type of request, and the only word that could go here is would. Now try to do both of these exercises on your own. Good luck!